Hello everyone, this is part 19 of What If Naruto Gained Ashura's Memories, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. What is that? Hiashi asked, his voice barely more than a whisper. Sasuke stared. He could only stare. Only one name kept bouncing in his mind. Ashura, he whispered. The last person he had seen in possession of Thajogan was his estranged cousin's eldest son. Ashura hadn't had the powerful chakra of his mother, but his eyes had been different than his siblings, and so, as a response, his Byakugan had evolved in a different way, birthing the Jogan. It was perhaps because Ashura didn't have that special sort of Otsutsuki chakra anymore, that set their family apart from others. Or it was a new thing, a response to his more human nature. Sasuke didn't know how Jogan came to be possessed by Ashura, but at this point it didn't matter anymore. He was D. But Trough his B, Trough Mitra's B, their uncle's legacy lived on. This wasn't the Tensagen, but Shinju forbade Ahuman to possess the Tensagen. That destruction, that could come from its power, tinted by human nature's inherent darkness. Sasuke shivered. Best not think about that, no. A part of him wanted to say that no, it was not possible for anyone to have the Jogan these days. He wanted to say, wanted to believe, that the bee had dwindled down a nung. That neither of the Hyuga had the potential anymore. His cousin's eyes were different from his, which was in some cases good. In other cases, like evolution, it wasn't so good. Byakugan didn't evolve the same way as Sharingan, that much their father and uncle had made clear. One's emotional state had little to do with the eyes. What? Neji whispered, the undercurrent of fear in his tone palpable. What's wrong? Sasuke shook his head, shifting Abbott to put a hand on the Hyuga's shoulder. It was strange, seeing those eyes, pale blue with darker pupil and the sclera dark gray, almost black. Nothing's wrong, Neji. Nothing at all, he said, trying to sound as calming as he could. Hanabi, Hinata, Hiashi called sternly. The girls looked away from Neji to look at their father and clan head. Hi, Oto-san. Please leave us for now. And do not mention this to all, he said, his voice dropping into a dangerously low octave. Hanabi nodded, recognizing the gravity of the situation, even if she didn't understand what was truly going on. I won't, she said. Then, she slipped from Neji's bed, also not before throwing him one last look of curiosity and worry. Hinata squeezed Neji's hand in reassurance and then she slipped out as well. As Hanabi and Hinata left, Naruto swiftly moved to the middle of the room, biting his thumb to hurriedly draw a few symbols on the floor. Then, he pushed chakra into them and the chakra made the blood flow in different ways, creating a much more complex pattern than the one which had originally been drawn. Fuinjutsu, Shinmoku no Hashira. Sealing technique, Pillars of Silence. The seal glowed and the symbols extended, meshing the entire room, creating an eerie blue-orange glow. A moment later Naruto stood up and nodded. Now, no one will hear us. What's wrong? Neji asked, obviously on the verge of panic. Sasuke sighed and shook his head. Nothing's wrong, cousin, he said, pointedly using the word, which made Neji blink and slow down a bit. In response, Naruto waved a hand, drawing some water from the air and guiding it over to Neji, then positioning it, like Amara. Have a look, Neji. Neji did just that. For a very long moment, he only stared at his reflection and then. What happened to Myeyes? Sasuke rubbed his ear and his Sharingan flashed in irritation. Not so loud, Neji. We might have a silencing seal and others cannot hear us, but you should not make whatif. Neji huffed, as the water dissolved, as Naruto flared his chakra. Sorry, but, what happened to my eyes? Long ago, Naruto murmured softly, the Byakugan was just one step of power. It, just like the Sharingan, had a second level. What? Hiashi asked. Why haven't we heard of this? Sasuke shifted Abbott and Neji scooped farther on the bed and gestured for him to sit. Sasuke gave him a look, but Neji made another gesture and Sasuke sighed. With Ashura's eyes staring back from Neji, he wasn't in the mood to piss the Hyuga off. For all he knew, Jogan was just as dangerous and powerful as Mangekyo Sharingan and Neji couldn't control it. I think it was lost to time, like so much of the Ninshu and chakra-related knowledge, he said. So, as it was said, Byakugan has different stages, one of which you can see now, courtesy of your nephew. Sasuke looked at Neji. See the chakra flow. You can't control these eyes, and the least thing we need is for you to end up with severe chakra exhaustion. Neji closed his eyes, and when he opened them again, they were back to the normal, featureless silver-white color. What is this dojutsu? Naruto hummed, sitting on the ground, Kekafusa between the bed and Hiyashi's chair. Hamura Oji-sama had, what we could call Thepropersicon stage of Byakugan, he called them the Tenseigan. His younger daughter, Mitra, inherited his Byakugan, and she later activated the Tenseigan as well. However, her children no longer possessed such power. Her eldest son, Ashura, however, still stood apart from his siblings, as his eyes evolved to a different stage. Something we could call a derived version of the Tenseigan, I suppose, imitation, which was fit to weaker, human be, in a way. However, after Ashura, no one had Jogan again. It was lost to time. And, honestly, I think the Hyuga K any chance of reacquiring these eyes, when they started using the caged bird seal. It may be due to that. Hiyashi said slowly, but pray tell, why does Neji have these eyes now? And why him? Sasuke and Naruto shared a look. That was a good question. What had changed over the months? They trained together, they spent time together. It couldn't have been the Ribi, as Neji hadn't been directly exposed to its chakra. Besides, with how malevolent that thing was, it would not have willingly given Neji something. Or maybe it was indeed just the stress of the situation, and he did, after all, achieve this level. In a similar manner Uchiha gained the Mangekyo. Sasuke's eyes went wide. Give, he said mentally, the three of us shared chakra, to get away from Ankavantian. Our chakra is more Ozatsuki-like, since we remember, and it just keeps growing stronger since we train. Naruto blinked, peering at him. Do you think our combined chakras, flowing through him, circulating in all three of us, in fact, caused the Jogan to resurface? Why not? The restraints on his eyes, created by the cursed seal, were gone. And with all the training we've been doing, he's been continuously exposed to our chakra, separately. His body got used to it. But when the great amount kept circulating between us, to help me maintain Susanoo. Remains of our chakra stuck in his system. Naruto finished, which then got assimilated to his own, and so, it triggered the buried genetics of the Jogan. Or perhaps the short exposure to the Ribi's malevolent presence. After all, the ruins were completely overrun by that energy. Or perhaps the two chakras at once, both the creatures and ours. Besides, he was both physically and mentally strong enough to survive an evolution, so when a fraction of our chakra stayed in him, his body reacted accordingly. Reawakened the Jogan, to make his chakra a bit more like natural assimilation to ensure survival. Sasuke offered. It was, after all, a possibility. Neither Mitra, nor Ashura ever revealed what caused the evolution of Ashura's dojutsu. Naruto, Sasuke, Neji called, jolting them from their mental conversation. Mind telling what's with my eyes? And, how did this happen? For a dojutsu to evolve, Sasuke said quietly, the wielder must be physically and mentally strong enough to survive the genetic change in their body. You were strong enough for that, hence the Jogan. But don't these sort of things need a catalyst? Hiyashi asked, like, how the Uchiha developed the Sharingan. It does need a catalyst. Naruto agreed, we're just not sure what it might have been. What? Asked Neji. Sasuke sighed. When our reincarnation came to a full cycle and we remembered our past life, our chakra can get somewhat. Chakra is a lot like B, as it carries certain informations about the user. In B, were Sasuke and Naruto. Our chakras, however, are the chakra of Indra and Asura. More Otsutsuki-like. You follow? Neji nodded. Yes. Hyuga and Kaguya are also Otsutsuki descendants. Naruto continued, so in a way, our chakras are similar. When we circulated our chakra to help Sasuke maintain Susanoo, some of our chakra remained in your system. It got absorbed in the course of few days and triggered the activation of Jogan. However, as a dojutsu user, your yin chakra is stronger. And Sasuke's as well. The reason why you collapsed was because for a little while, there was too much yin chakra in your body, which caused pain and didn't allow the Jogan to properly manifest. When it held you, expelled some of my yang chakra, which balanced out yours. With the potential right there and now your chakra in balance, the Jogan appeared. Or perhaps it was your short exposure to the Rebi's dark presence, ith all the negativity, but we're unsure. Maybe it was Otsutsuki chakra that was needed for the eyes to appear, since it's different from normal chakra. When you got that from us in a bigger dose, it stuck around, evolving your Byakugan. But somewhere in your mind and body, there had to be a hidden potential for it. So it's as much individual, as it is genetical, and a bit of luck, I suppose. Sasuke said. In short, Naruto said, the Jogan was always there, buried deep within, it just needed a spark to show itself. That's shocking, Hiashi said. Does this mean his children might have Jogan too? The potential will bigger, Naruto added, but it will still need certain conditions to appear. So it depends on many things. Neji's eyes were wide. Holy, and what do they do? Sasuke chuckled. That's the tricky question, Neji. We know the basics of it, as we both dealt with Mitra several times in the past and we've also seen some demonstrations from Hamura Oji-sama. But they had Tensagen. We weren't around her children so much. Especially not me. Maybe Ashura and his family, but certainly not me and Shachi. You'll have to figure most of the things out through trial and error. That is. Naruto looked around the room pointedly. Useless Oji-sama pops up right about now. He paused for a second, to help you. Of course, as expected, nothing happened. Naruto shrugged. Sasuke chuckled at his antics and shook his head. The point is, that it's not going to be easy. We'll help you where we can and we'll teach you a bit more about the in-depth of Ninshu. That might help with getting a grasp of your new eyes. And of course, as we go, we'll share the basics we know. And, Naruto added with a wry grin, we'll make sure you don't blow up yourself at village. Both Neji and Hiashi paled. I could do that. Neji murmured, going sickly pale. Sasuke hummed. If you apply the power right. I think yes. Kind of. For Tensai Gankold Katane do damage like that. Gods know how much of that power Ashura inherited Trough Jogan. And you ought to be just a bit more like the first generations of the Hyuga, otherwise we wouldn't be having this conversation. By the sage's beard. Hiashi murmured. With due respect, Hiashi Dono, you're speaking about our father. Naruto said with a glare. The Hyuga head's gaze snapped to Naruto. Oh, Gumen. Bad habit. He rubbed his face, obviously tired. Senju Dono, shall his seal hold? Now more than ever, I think it is needed to protect him. Naruto hummed. I think so. However, just to ease your mind, as well as ours, I shall have a look, when he completely recovers. Neji? Sasuke asked, as he stood up. Neji looked up. Yes. For a while, don't try anything. Jogan isn't a normal occurrence in your clan. A would say, that since it manifested, it shot your chakra your control, in a few days. If it's shot, you might reveal your new eyes to people, when they shouldn't know. Sasuke warned. Neji nodded. Noted. Will be careful. Sasuke hummed and stood up. Rest now. We'll visit in a few days, alright. Or maybe you could come to the Namika's house. Less prying eyes and all. Then if you feel up to it, we can start training. Alright. Naruto stood up as well and smiled at Neji, patting his shoulder. Take care, will you? Oh, and stay in bed for today. Neji smiled. Sure. Sasuke watched his brother nod to Hiashi and then he stepped away too. His black eyes landed on Neji and he studied the older boy for a second and then his lips curled upwards. Mitra would like you a lot, you know. You're a lot like her. She'd be proud to call you one of her own. Her B, and Oji-sama's living legacy. Neji's eyes went wide and then he grinned. Arigato. Naruto's eyes narrowed recently on the sealing formula of his great-aunt's Byakugo no In. It was a genius invention and indeed the pinnacle of medical ninjutsu, hand in hand with his great-granduncle's self-healing, although he had a slight suspicion that it had something to do with the fact that Hashirama had been like him, in life. The point was, that the Byakugo was the pinnacle of medical ninjutsu and even he recognized a genius invention, when he saw one. The Yin seal was one such thing, save for its only and greatest flaw. It shortened the user's lifespan. Of course, it wasn't such a big deal for Uzumaki, who, according to some accounts, lived 100 years or so and the luckier Senju, who'd lived till retirement, lived about 70-80 years, some even 90. So even if the person used Abyakugo, their lifespan would be shortened by a decade or about 15 years. Roughly, if his estimations were correct, but it really depended on how many times the seal had been released and for how long. The point was, that he had no intention of shortening his own lifespan, just to survive a fatal eye. Not when he knew more about chakra, than most of the shinobi today. He knew there had to be a way to further improve the seal, keeping all its positive effects and none of the negative. He knew there had to be something. Let's see. That symbol keeps the balance. Those are for storage, that one ensures it's safe and stable. That one is the one, which continuously draws in chakra, that keeps yang. He paused, eyes narrowing. Of course. Yang chakra. It was life. If he mixed yang and mokuton, or natural energy, really, he could get away with actually. Yes. Natural energy sounded better, since even if his future children didn't have his mokuton, he could go and teach them the technique, as long as they had the needed chakra control. That would actually recreate the damaged cells or heal and strengthen them further. If the damaged cells were healed and strengthened further, it would be harder to damage them again. Oh, and if he twisted some of the symbols, he could actually separate the storage and the healing properties of the seal. A wide grin spread across his face and he quickly snatched up the closest plain scroll he could get his hands on and started scribing. If this worked out, he might never again need Kurama's healing, because as long as the seal had chakra inside to release, he could heal himself. Eyes narrowed, with several situations going through his mind, he scribed the seal, remembering to keep in mind the basic rules of ninju. After all, he didn't want to ditch death, no, he just wanted to make sure he'd grow old and grey. He wanted to make sure he could pull through situations that would kill a regular man. He wasn't the former head of the Otsutsuki and inventor of the basics of modern medical arts for nothing. When he was done, about 20 minutes later, his violet eyes scanned over the entire script, looking for flaws. Any flaws, even the smallest one. When he was sure that the flaws he made were corrected and there were none left at all, he created a shadow clone and stripped of his haori and mesh shirt and shoved the brush into the hands of the clone. The clone gave him an evil eye, but then turned to study the scroll for a moment, before dipping the brush in the specially mixed ink and starting to draw on his skin. Once the seal was done, he would just have to meditate a bit, to spread the chakra in it accordingly and to gather some natural energy. Once that was done, the seal would be complete. Complete, perfect Byakugo. Sasuke just finished cleaning the house, when there was a knock on the door. Itachi was out on a mission, so he would be back late tonight. It was just him and Naruto for a change, but his brother was absorbed in something fuinjutsu related, so much, that Fata Naruto didn't answer his call for breakfast, he just decided to let him be. It was never a good idea, to disturb him, when he was like that. He put the cleaning equipment away and shuffled over to the door with a slight smile. Neji had recovered, it seemed. He opened the door and nodded inside. Ohio. Come in, Neji. Take your better. Neji nodded. I am. Alter, just as you said, my control is a mess. No Tentaligone, but much messier than it used to be, so Uncle and Hinata promised to help quietly, to regain it. He hummed, escorting the Hyuga inside. As expected, I'm sure Ototo can give you a few advanced chakra control tips as well. They may be of use. Jogen would take more chakra than Byakugan, just as my Mangekyo takes more. So better control means using it for longer time. You never know when you may need its advanced abilities, whatever they are. Neji's pale gaze swept the place. Where's everyone, by the way? Itachi's on a mission, so he'll be back sometime tonight. Naruto's in the backyard, messing around with Fuinju. He was off, as he felt the powerful chakra blaze. He shared a quick look with Neji and then they hurried towards the porch. Shinju knew what his brother was doing again. Sigh. As much as he loved Ashura, he should get paid for dealing with him and his seals, and the pranks, oh, the pranks. Thepping still haunted his nightmares and he swore he could still hear Naruto's laughter mix with Tobirama's. He shuddered. They arrived in the backyard fast, and he found his brother sitting in a meditative position, chakra forming a visible sheen around him, seals glowing and S across his body, as if alive, until they were all gone, to leave only the Byakugo behind. But, as he walked closer, he noticed that it was different from the original one. The purple rhombus was still there, but now it had an extra layer on the two sides, lighter in shade, Just a hair's breadth more pinkish, and he could see the skin between the Lyre edition and the original seal, almost as if there hadn't been enough ink to fill everything. But he had to admit, it looked nice. Modestly simple, yet fancy at the same time. Just the sort that fit his brother's style and personality. And something told him that there was power behind that seal. Neji threw him a look with aquarked eyebrow, as if silently asking, "What is that?" Sasuke shrugged. Fuinjutsu and medical ninjutsu were his brother's business, not his. And the Byakugo was the combination of those two arts. The two he knew the least about. Not to say he was completely incompetent in those fields, it just never really sat well with his style. Nor did he ever have truly perfect control, which was needed for medical purposes. Naruto opened his eyes and a wide, satisfied smile spread across his face. His violet eyes glowed with the combined light of happiness and fading chakra. "What did you dono, Ototo?" he asked, making a vague gesture at the odd Byakugo. "That, dear Indrani-sama, is the absolute perfect form of Byakugo. It stores chakra and heals if needed, without shortening my lifespan. As you know, the original one shortens the user's life, since it speeds up the splitting of cells and a body's cells can only split a certain amount of times. Well, this perfect, Rikudo Byakugo don't shorten my lifespan. Has all the positives without slowly killing me." Sasuke blinked once, and then twice, and then he gaped. He actually gaped, because he remembered Tsunade telling him out the seal. How neither her, nor her grandparents could figure out a way to get rid of its downsides. They couldn't even minimize it. And his brother did it. With this, Naruto actually outshone the likes of Senju Hashirama and Uzumaki Mito, Fuin and medical ninjutsu wise, as well. And then, he laughed, ruffling Naruto's hair, which caused him to pout childishly. "If anyone ever said you were incompetent, well, they should take it back. I certainly take it back, Ototo. Pranks and all that mischief, but you're your own sort of genius." Naruto chuckled and blushed, scratching his cheek in embarrassment, just as he used to do when they were kids. Hey, thanks, Nisama." He pretended not to notice how his little brother leaned into his touch afterwards. He also pretended not to notice, for the rest of the day, as Naruto went about his day with a spring in his step, throwing him an occasional admiring look, when the blonde thought he would not see. Neji's eyes were wide. "Holy, and what do they do?" Sasuke chuckled. "That's the tricky question, Neji. We know the basics of it, as we both dealt with Mitra several times in the past, and we've also seen some demonstrations from Hamura Oji-sama. But they had Tensegan. We weren't around her children so much. Especially not me. Maybe Ashura and his family, but certainly not me and Shachi. You'll have to figure most of the things out through trial and error." "That is." Naruto looked around the room pointedly. "Useless Oji-sama pops up right about now, Hepaust for Asakond, to help you." As if summoned by words of magic, there was a bright blue light and powerful wave of chakra. Sasuke's breath hitched. Only, that chakra. He shared a quick look with Naruto, and then they both scrambled to their feet. "What did you just do, Ototo?" he hissed frantically, almost panicking. Shit, which of their relatives were visiting? He hoped it was someone sane and not for one. No, don't even think about that person. Naruto flailed little. "Nothing. I swear on the moon, it did nothing," he hissed back in panic. When the light faded, there stood a man in a complex ceiling circle. He still looked the same as Sasuke remembered him from their childhood, not a wrinkle on his face, not a hair out of place. It was as if the many years hadn't even left a mark on him. Waist-length, striate, white hair. His bangs were short, hung to left side of his face, with a chin-length lock which hung from the right side of his face. Small, horn-like protrusions on his forehead, and his eyes were pale, the sign of his Byakugan. He wore a light, full-length kimono with a pattern of 6 black magatama around a high collar and dark pants. He also had his sword in its sheath strapped to his left hip and his shakujo tied to his back, visible above his shoulder. Am I dreaming, or is this Tsukuyomi? Naruto choked out, taking an unsteady step towards their uncle. Neither, Asura-kun. Why look so surprised? You wanted to see me. Uncle Hamura answered. Naruto's violet eyes went wide and he bowed hurriedly, clumsily, none of his usual grace present. Oji-sama. I just what, nephew? You should know by now, that words have power. Then, his eyes shifted and as the familiar pale eyes settled on him, Sasuke swallowed hard. He bowed deeply, afraid to look the man in the eyes, for a moment. Their uncle's dedication to peace and their father's beloved world had been widely known by their clan. And once, he had tried destroying that peace. Oji-sama. Their uncle's gaze rested on him for a long, heavy moment and he feared the judgment he might get. Good to see you again, Indra-kun. A relief to see you two aren't trying to claw out each other's Aishikane. Sasuke winced at that. A few hundred years was more than long enough, Oji-sama. Time for us to set things straight. Inwardly, Sasuke cursed himself for stumbling over his words, like a fool, but he couldn't help it. Even after all this time, the man made him feel like a clueless toddler. Their uncle nodded. Yes, but tell me, how setting the world straight, that I've left to you and my daughters so long ago, involves me being here. Naruto muttered, making a hasty gesture at Neji, one of Mitra-chan's descendants got the joggin. He offered weakly. Their uncle's eyes settled on Neji, who stiffened and then his gaze returned to them. Unexpected. I'd watched both of the clans for a long while and no one had shown as much promise as my daughters. And if I recall correctly, Ashura-kun was the only one to possess such eyes. How come one of them have joggin now? He shared an uneasy look with Naruto. We might have been escaping from a flying fortress that was about to crash into the ocean. And, you see, the problem with reincarnation is that we don't have all that prowess we used to. So we might have shared chakra, so Ni-sama could get us out with Susanoo. And, well, Neji might have been involved. Naruto scratched his cheek sheepishly, you know, chakra connecting and circulation. And some of our chakra might have stuck in his system, or maybe it was the energy of the Jubi wannabe, we really have no clue, he. Then, sooner than either of them could react, their uncle moved. He grabbed the shakujo from his back and whacked them over the head with it. Sasuke groaned and rubbed the painful spot. You total idiots. How in the name of, damn it, how could Oni-sama trust either of you with ninju? And I thought Sarvastra and Mitra had been bad. It seems you two outshine their idiocy by a great deal, even with several hundreds of years of extra life behind you. Sasuke twitched. Will it change anything if we say we're sorry? He offered carefully. The shakujo went flying again. Sasuke winced again and this time both him and Naruto ended up falling on their rear. Oh, Shinju, the humiliation of being treated like a child. Oh, Kami, the humiliation. You two can be as reckless as you want, that's Hagoromo's problem, not mine. But you involve my descendants in that endless idiocy of yours. Alright. Naruto flailed with wide, puppy eyes, we're very sorry. Can you help Oji-sama? We really don't feel like letting a clueless, untrained jogging user running around, cause, you know, he made a gesture, we've got to deal with the slowly approaching end of the world and maniac Uchihas and their uncle deadpanned. Where are my nephews? They weren't such idiots. Or had the one too many reincarnations single brain cell you had? Well, it's not like you had many, Ashura, but you two, Indra. You were called a genius. Sasuke twitched. We, idiots. Their uncle sighed, I weep for our clan, if the two of you are the future. You landed yourselves in this mess, so deal with it, and then he was gone with another flash of great chakra. Naruto sat on the floor, tears gathering in the corners of his eyes, lips trembling as he rubbed the sore spot on his head. He hates us, doesn't he? Sasuke scooted over to him and hugged him, tucking his brother's head under his chin. Nah, you know he tended to be sharper with words than Oto-sama ever was. It's just, he thinks we're total idiots. They pulled apart and shared a look, staring into each other's eyes. Their uncle thought them idiots. A part of them wanted to laugh, because they were anything but idiots. Another part wanted to cry, it was not as if they had any dignity left, after this meeting anyway, because he totally left them without even a clue about how to help Neji. Damn him. It was a perfect day in Konoha. The sky was bright blue, the sun shone above and birds sung their songs. It was truly an idyllic day. Boom. The massive explosion echoed across the entire village, shaking the ground and startling several birds, forcing many people to stop. Shinobi and civilians all stopped to wonder what it was. Alter only for a moment, as the shinobi nearby then all leapt into action, ready to deal with any enemy that might suddenly appear. Gods knew they'd dealt with enough surprise attacks over the years. There was one in the Third War, then the recent Chunin exam, and then the Land of Sky. Namiashi Rado was one of the shinobi nearby, so he sped towards the direction of the explosion, as fast as he could, already thinking of ways to deal with the enemy, depending on numbers. He was sure that others would be heading here as well, and that Anbu had surely been deployed already. The Hokage wouldn't leave the village undefended. His thought process was see off, when he reached his destination. One of the Jonin training grounds at the edge of the village, so rarely used, that Rado was sure people had even forgotten it existed in the first place. What he saw was not what he was expecting. Below on the ground, Senju Uzumaki Naruto and Uchiha Sasuke were facing off, their chakras so potent and wild, that the colorful energies were actually visible. Sasuke's eyes shone sinisterly, spinning wildly, his body shrouded in flames of silvery purple. Naruto's own eyes were tangerine in color, and there were strange markings of reddish-brown spread across his face, his chakra amix of golden green. Just steps behind the two young Jonin stood two massive animals, that Rado knew to be summons, a black wolf and a white deer. Both beasts darted closer to their respective summoners, and the boys leapt on their backs, their chakra intensifying even more. Kojin, Susanoo, origin, he with the ability to help by all means, Sasuke called, and a strange purple armor formed around the wolf. He'd heard this and that about Susanoo in passing from Itachi, rather recently, but he hadn't known that the thing could be applied onto summons. Senpo, Mokuton, Jitsuzai Mokusei Ju no Yoroi. Naruto called, as wood grew from the ground. Sage art, wood release, true wooden beast armor. Rado's jaw dropped. Since when did Naruto know senjutsu? That art was pretty hard, and from what he knew, the current, and only, master of it in the village was Jiraiya. True, the blonde had it running in his family, the Shodaime and the Yondaime had both been known as sages, but that thing was hard. How the hell did the blonde learn it so young? Ready to lose, Ni-sama. The blonde Senju taunted. Sasuke snorted. Only in your dreams, sweet Ototo. And then, both of the armored summons leapt forwards, clashing fiercely, their summoners leaping into the air, to clash with the Sesshakujo. Who used such an old-fashioned thing these days? Not to mention, those were more ceremonial additions for monks, and an emergency weapon, rather than actual weapon meant for shinobi. Shakujo, after all, were meant to be symbols of balance and peace. The summons clashed just as fiercely as their summoners. And from where Rado stood on the branch, it seemed the two prodigious Jonin, they were prodigies. After all, no one had dealt with Biju so young as they had, and if he knew things correctly, this wasn't the only time. They'd kept the Ichibi Jinchuriki in check during their Chunin exams, and recently, a few weeks ago, they'd subdued and resealed the Sanbi and the now retired Yondai Mizukage, Karatachi Yagura. The two summons parted after several ground-shaking clashes, as their respective armors faded, watching the boys. Both were fast, one focused on fluidity and predicting what might come next, while the other aimed to break bones and shred insides with a single strike. The clanking of metal echoed sharply, as the glowing Shakujo met strike for strike, neither of the two letting up their relentless attacking. Seeing them clash, Rado was reminded of the times when he sometimes would watch a training session between Uchiha Fugaku and the newly minted Yondaime, before the poor man had been drowned in paperwork, only to realize he could use Kage Bunshin to deal with said headache. The thought made him chuckle. Then, in a clear definition of unpredictability, the blonde flung his weapon at the Uchiha and Atkid the other with pure taijutsu. The Uchiha deflected the weapon and then dropped his own, to fend off the Senju Uzumaki with bare hands, his eyes burning dangerously, as if he could even read the blonde's soul. The blonde's taijutsu was good, and it kind of froze the bee in his veins, as he watched their pattern. It was similar to how Juken worked, Rado noted. But not exactly the same. Even if not those. Naruto slipped and stumbled. Sasuke moved fast, but Naruto used Ashunshin to get some distance between them, and as he hit the ground, it broke up the soil beneath them, and gods be good. Rado shivered. Were all Senju like this? Possessing such monstrous strength to shatter the very earth with a blow? He made a mental note never to piss of Naruto. He remembered how people whispered about Uzumaki Kushina's dangerous, and he remembered how she would be the only one, daring to march into the Hokage office, waving her katana around, roaring BM on her not yet husband. No, Rado decided, he would never piss of the son of Uzumaki Kushina. The son, who hit like Senju Tsunade. The Uchiha missed a kick and it instead collided with the ground, also shattering it. Rado paled. He thought only Naruto used chakra to enhance his blows. Mokuton, Abara no Arare. Would release, Hail of Thorns, Naruto called, and only now did Rado realize he was airborne, creating several massive thorns of wood, which then flew straight for the Uchiha. The Uchiha's lips quirked upwards and his chakra blazed, stronger than before, and Rado swore he could feel the heat radiating off of the Sharingan user in scorching waves. Even from this distance the heat and the strength of chakra made him uncomfortable. Ninshu, Shiroi Hono, Ten no Hiru. Shinobi Creed, White Flames, Celestial Fire Dragon. Fire formed around the Uchiha's very body, writhing and coiling, growing in size and strength, until Sasuke seemed small in the ring of snow-white fire. It lunged forwards with a roar, burning away the wood. And wasn't that mind-blowing? From what he'd heard, not even Uchiha Madara had powerful enough fire jutsu in his arsenal, to burn the Shodai's wood to ashes without a trace, just as Sasuke did right now. Naruto, however, was prepared and apparently not at all worried, as water formed around him, drawing the moisture from the air, just as the Nadai had. Ninshu, Suten, Nanatsunumi no Tate. Shinobi Creed, Water Release, Shield of the Seven Seas. The water encased the blonde, and to Rado's shock, it was enough to put out the flames. He'd heard from Kakashi that Sasuke's white flammes couldn't be so simply doused, and one had to have an impressive mastery, on par with the Nadaime, to even attempt Sikating. Well, Naruto's definitely good enough then, he thought with a hint of Asmal, Minato-sama's son, alright, aren't ya, kid? He whispered softly. For a moment, he saw nothing, as vapor filled the air, but then there was a great gust of wind, which cleared it. Both of them jumped at one another again, exchanging fast, precise blows whatif of Anbu. Until there was a soft rattle and suddenly, Sasuke went, embarrassingly, face first into the dirt. Rado blinked in shock. The Uchiha had been more graceful so far, than anyone he'd ever seen. He didn't look the kind to lose his footing so easily. Until he saw the telltale glint of gold. Dull golden chains were sneaking up the Uchiha's leg, now rapidly wrapping everywhere else as well, rattling even more, keeping the Sharingan user tied down. Looks like we're even again, Ni-sama. Naruto grinned mischievously. The expression, Rado nodded, was an odd mix of his parents. You won the first bout and this one's mine. Sasuke huffed, obviously annoyed, but as he shifted, Rado saw no malice on his face, only a bit of exasperation. We're even, Ototo. Are you happy now? He grunted. Naruto laughed, and with a wave of his hand, the chains released the Uchiha and he offered his hand. Sasuke shifted and took the blonde's hand, allowing himself to be pulled up. Someone's here, a voice growled. Rado's eyes fell on the admittedly intimidating wolf summon. Then, the two young clan heads' eyes fell on him. It was odd to think of these two as such. Well, all right. Not exactly. Since Itachi had given up his spot, Sasuke was clan head, but with Tsunade still about, Naruto was technically only the heir. Not that it mattered much. Rado was sure Naruto maneuvered the village as a full-fledged clan head, politically speaking. Mind showing yourself? The Senju called out with a raised eyebrow. Rado shivered a bit, as he saw that expression. Way too close to the Yondaime's dangerous one. He leapt from the branch, not feeling like dealing with the kid's Mokuton or chains. Rumor had it he didn't have the Hiraishin under his belt yet, but with the bingo book entries both had, it was just a question of time. As he walked to meet them, the two summons darted closer, obviously protective of the two boys, until the Uchiha spoke. Wait, Kajutsume. He's one of us, no need to be so hostile. The wolf stopped, and so did Rado, eyeing the summon suspiciously. What brings you here, Jonan-san? Naruto asked. Rado glanced at the stag next to him and then looked at the violet-eyed blonde. Mere curiosity, Namikaze-sama. You were quite loud, and I'm surprised there aren't an entire squadron of Anbu here. Naruto grinned wryly. So long since someone called Menamikaze. They usually tend to stick with Senju, these days. And Tsunade Oba-san knows we're training here, so she told everyone not to raise alarm for anything felt from around this area. Rado glanced around the destroyed training ground and he hummed. I think, you understand why everyone's been warned off here. Naruto chuckled. We're not that bad. Rado quirked an eyebrow. Seriously, I've seen what you two just did. Tell me, have you already learned Hiraishin as well? Naruto blinked at him and then smiled sheepishly. Nope. I hadn't had time to have a look at it and Jiraiya's gone again cause there's some unrest he had to check. So there's not really anyone in the village who knows Theshiki and the basics of that thing. While ik no Fuinjutsu, I wouldn't mind someone clarifying some things about Hiraishin before I attempt using it. While the seal has been written down, Oto-san didn't write an explanation and with a good reason. Rado hummed, well, you're in luck. Name's Rado. Namiashi Rado, one of your father's former bodyguards. Both boys' eyebrows went up. Interesting, the Uchiha murmured. Naruto studied him. A pleasure to meet, Namiashi-san. Rado nodded back. The pleasure's all mine. As I said, I severed in your father's guard platoon and he taught me the Hiraishin altar. It has a big chakra cost, so I can only use it with my two teammates. But we all know Theshiki and the theory behind it. So if you'd like, I could help you clear up some things about it. You wouldn't mind? He chuckled. Not at all, Namikaze-sama. After all, it's part of your heritage. Naruto's lips curled into agron, which reminded Rado of the D Hokage himself. I'll be taking you up on that offer. He looked at the Uchiha. Go home, Ni-sama. I'll land there sometime later. His eyes flickered to the deer. Thank you for the spar and the help, Shirotsuno. You may return home. The stag dipped his head. Take care, Senju-sama. And then he was gone in a plume of smoke. Rado caught similar words from the Uchiha, as he dismissed his wolf summon. The Uchiha's eyes, still burning with the Sharingan, landed on the blonde again. He'd used to work with Uchihas, while the clan was still around and he'd gotten used to looking at him from time to time, without being caught in Agenjutsu. Yet, seeing Sasuke's eyes was different, there was something different about those eyes. There was some sort of searing power behind it, that Rado didn't remember Uchiha possessing. Not even Fugaku or Itachi. Fine, just make sure you don't overexert it yourself, Ototo. He patted the blonde on the shoulder with a faint smile. As useful as it is, you can get about without having it for a while longer. Don't forget to come home and rest. I'm sure if you speak with Tsunade-sensei, she can survive a few days without Namiashi-san in his post. Naruto rolled his eyes with a chuckle. Don't fret so much. I'll rest too. I just want to go over Theshiki today. And depending on how well it works out, I might try it in a week or a bit more. I think I'll have to learn to draw and apply the seal, before even attempt using it. Good. The Uchiha muttered and then glanced at him with Anid. Make sure he doesn't go overboard, would you, Namiashi-san? Rado blinked a bit and then nodded. It was one thing, overseeing these two and hearing about them, hearing and seeing how they treated one another as true brothers. And an entirely different thing to find himself caught in a situation, where he had to converse with them. It made him notice, that they acted not like people their age. Of course, he answered after a moment. The Uchiha nodded in satisfaction, gave one last look to Naruto, an odd mix between warning and fondness, before disappearing in a swirl of snow-white flames. When Rado was sure the Uchiha was gone, he gestured towards the village, as he glanced at Naruto. We should look for a more intact place to retreat to. All this chakra lingering around here makes it hard to breathe. Naruto sheepishly scratched the back of his neck. Hell, that was so much like his father, that it was almost painful to watch, and nodded. Sure. What place do you have in mind, Namiashi-san? Naruto huffed softly as he landed on the top of the Hokage mountain with a bowl of still steaming rice. Today he'd been off with Shiranui Genma, instead of Rado, going over the workings of his father's signature technique. He was pretty worn out and hungry. Now that the first half of the day had been spent with training, he planned on doing nothing, but relax with Sasuke right there. Sasuke was already sitting, his rice half finished, all to his brother looked up at his arrival. How was it? He sat down and took a bit of his food. It's not easy. You get the theory behind it, but it doesn't make it any easier to use. Besides, since this thing is space-time jutsu, I really can't afford to make a mistake with the markers. So now that we're done with the theory, I'll be working on the markers a bit, before even ask the three to demonstrate the jutsu for me, he explained. Sasuke nodded with a small hum. Hey, it's okay. Take your time with it. You were perfectly fine the first time around without any fancy teleportation. So going a few more months without it really doesn't matter much, right? Naruto smiled. His brother had always known the right words to cheer him up. He wasn't sad, just a bit burdened, but Sasuke knew how to deal with it anyway. True. They finished the rest of their meal in silence, and when they were done, set the plates aside. For a long moment, the silence stretched even further. It's nice, Naruto murmured, just us, with a bit of calmness and silence. We'd been so focused on training and missions and saving Konoha, that I can't even remember when we had some time for ourselves. True, Sasuke said, as he lay back onto the grass, his hands folded under his head. But we have it now, so we might as well enjoy it. Naruto grinned and laid down too. Yeah, we might as well, he said, scooting closer to Sasuke. What are? Come on. I want a nap. Naruto said, you know, like we used to, when we were kids. Sasuke rolled his eyes a bit, but shifted. Naruto grinned and curled into Sasuke's side, with one of his brother's hands on his back, drawing small circles. Satisfactory now, Ototo. It's perfect, Naruto murmured. Moments later, he was between sleep and wakefulness already. And in that odd half-asleep state, both of them landed in Kurama's seal, with their eldest brother himself napping. Coming for a visit, Kurama drawled lazily. Well, we hadn't had any quiet moments lately. Naruto admitted. Maybe we could take a nap together. Kurama hummed. Come on, then. Naruto chuckled sleepily, as their brother shifted slightly. Naruto lay next to him and nestled himself into the warm orange fur. Sasuke rolled his eyes, but he did the same anyway, draping an arm around him the same way, as their were out in the real world. Kurama hummed softly and a fluffy tail waved around a bit to cover them both for extra warmth, not that it was actually needed, but it was comfortable anyway. Night, Nisama. Naruto murmured, his voice already adral again. He knew it wasn't night outside, but who cared? Sasuke just nestled closer to him in wordless answer and Naruto smiled. Kurama's soft, warm breath ruffled their hair and clothes, as the kitsune settled as well. Rest well, Ototo. Answer, the three brothers slept peacefully, clinging to each other, even in the dreams. The shore was quiet and untouched ever since the Sorenin had drowned here and the ocean had swallowed the city. The sun glistened on the clear blue water, creating an idyllic scene. The gently rocking sea was then disturbed by ripples, growing bigger and bigger, until a vaguely human-like shape, entirely black and featureless, save for the round yellow eyes, rose out of the water. The liquid splashed loudly for a bit before the creature stopped on the sandy shore, grinning widely to show a row of sharp, white teeth. In its grip, the sentient shadow held a massive sealing scroll, which glowed with cold, black aura, clasped shut by an intricate, spiral-like seal. The creature looked down at the massive scroll with a triumphant grin. Arigato, Ashura. You contributed to the rise of Okasama's rising. Soon, the creature hissed, the data's eye will be set on the world once more. And this time, there is no Sennin to stop it. With those words, the shadow sunk into the sand, taking with it the great sealing scroll. There was no trace left behind. Sasuke slipped through the Hyuga compound's main gate silently, like a ghost. It was time for another lesson with Neji. The last time they'd managed to figure out how much chakra his new eyes ate up, and now it was time to figure out how far its abilities went. The Hyuga he passed greeted him with respectful nods and small smiles. And wasn't that odd? The Hyuga and his kin had been at odds, for as long as himself and Ashura had been squabbling over their inheritance like petulant children, instead of sharing power and responsibilities. Maybe even longer, since he had never been overly fond of Mitra. He remembered how firstly he loved Ashura, before Zetsu's lies reached his ears. The same fierceness, with which he loved his brother now. With Mitra, however, that had never been. Both of them were too quiet and generally detached, to actually from a bond that went beyond cool family formality. In fact, even those days, they'd been at odds at which of them was more promising, when it came to their respective dojutsu. Not to mention, that he was sure, that it had grated at Mitra, that she was the younger sister, not only that, but also the daughter of the younger brother. Hence, she had no claim at Ninshu at all. Ninshu had always lain on his shoulders, as a child, or so he believed, and at a later time, Ashura had inherited it. But had something happened to both him and Ashura, it would have been Sarvastra, who would have carried on the teachings. Mitra, as the youngest of the four of them, had figuratively nothing, in that sense. So on the top of the prodigy rivalry, this was another factor. Something that drove an even greater wedge between them. They'd always been different, too different, or perhaps too similar in a sense, to feel comfortable around one another. Besides, Mitra's prideful nature didn't help either. Not that he hadn't been a bit detached and prideful, but Mitra had been worse. They had been a family, but it had never felt like that. Now, Sasuke mused, as he passed the many Kree Hyuga, who greeted him with smiles and respectful nods, now he felt like they were family. He paused for a second in front of the gate of the main compound and nodded to the guards. Both men bowed their heads. Uchiha-sama. Good day. Is Neji here? I came to speak with him. The man on the left nodded. His hair was short and spiky, a rare thing in the clan. The Hyuga liked flaunting their abilities to see nearly 180 degrees. Yes, he is. I believe he's helping Hanabi-sama polish her skills, so you will find them in the dojo. Arigato. And then he slipped inside. He just barely set foot on the porch, when he noticed a girl around Kakashi's age. She had inky black hair. Her eyes were so pale, that they almost looked like freshly fallen snow. She smiled and bowed. Good day, Uchiha-sama. May I perhaps be of assistance? Good day, Hyuga-san. I'm looking for Neji. I believe your head is already aware of my visit. Then please follow me, she said, waving him into the building. He followed her through the corridors until they reached the dojo. Just as he'd been told, Neji was there, sparring with his younger cousin. A brief glance with his Sharingan was enough to know that the older was working on correcting Hanabi's small flaws and to help her increase speed and fluidity of movement. Hiyashi's gaze fell on him and Sasuke gave the man a brief nod. As Hanabi leapt away, Sasuke used the chance to use a quick Shunshin to get behind Neji, ready to strike. Which of course, the older male caught. Sharingan stared down Byakugan for a moment and they exchanged a few quick strikes, most of Neji's attempts batted away or intercepted. Of course, Neji himself was familiar enough with his style to dodge, but a few still found their mark, causing the Hyuga to wince. After the short bout he leapt back and smirked. Looks like your speed's getting better. Running from Ototo's strikes does good, huh? Neji rolled his eyes. Don't be ridiculous. I know you dodge his strikes too. I bet you wouldn't take one to the face without Susanoo active. Sasuke snorted. Are you kidding me? Give it some time and he's gonna be cracking that too. Happened before? Neji asked knowingly, as he grabbed a bottle and took a drink. Sasuke hummed. You could say. So, can we go? Neji nodded, stealing a glance at Hiyashi. Oji-san. Hiyashi waved. Go, Neji. Arigato. He dipped his head to the clan head and turned to him. Sasuke hummed for a moment, thinking about what place to use. The training ground they'd used last time was currently occupied by Agent and team, so. Meet me on the Hokage Plateau, he said and disappeared in a Shunshin. No one would bother them there. Naruto glazed down at the bags filled with groceries. Since Sasuke had gone to help Neji train, the shopping was his today, not that he minded it all that much. Now that shopping was done, he could down and research some more Fuinjutsu. If Madara really succeeded in releasing the Jubi, then they would need one hell of a seal to contain it again. And since their father and uncle weren't here to help, that fell on his shoulders. If he was correct, summoning the Gedo Mazo would not damage the moon itself, it would just tear the space-time seal apart, which had entrapped the grandmother. So, if they could redo the seal, they could theoretically seal the statue and the grandmother, without the Rinnegan. Or without creating a new moon. Duh. That would be a mess. It would most likely flip the natural balance onto its head. He was sure their father wouldn't be too happy with them, or any of the kami watching over the realm, if they messed with natural balance and tried playing God, without having any right to such things. He was so absorbed in his thoughts, that he ended up colliding with someone. He grunted at the pain and the next thing he noticed was the panicked squeal. As his attention snapped to the person, with whom he collided. His eyes went wide and he gently dropped his grocery bags. Oh, gomen nasai, Karen-chan, he muttered softly, as he offered a hand to his fellow Uzumaki, it's my fault. I wasn't paying attention to where I was going. Weren't you hurt? Karen shook her head. I'm fine, Naruto-kun, she said, her red eyes flickering to the ground. Naruto caught the movement and found a broken food container, all its contents spilled to the ground. Oh, was that your food? I'm so ashamed now, he said, his tone a mix of sheepishness and sadness. Inwardly, he cursed himself for his clumsiness and wandering thoughts. He should have been paying attention, instead of worrying about the seal, while out on the streets. Karen blinked and shook her head. It's no problem. I'll just buy a new one. IIE. Let me invite you, Karen-chan. It was the clumsy one. She blinked owlishly and then she shook her head rapidly, her face red. No need. I can just. Linsist, he said gently, but strongly. It's my fault, so linsist you let me fix it. Which means, I'm inviting you to eat. She blushed even more. Ooh. Well, fine, then. Naruto smiled. Wonderful. He quickly created a shadow clone and shoved the grocery bags into the copy's hands and waved it off. The clone rolled its eyes at him before disappearing in Naruto Shunshin. With that done, he smiled at Karen, offering her his arm. She blushed again, but took it with a small, shy smile. Naruto glanced down at her curiously. It was odd. He wasn't overly tall, but she was even shorter than him. What's your favorite food, Karen-chan? She answered without missing a beat, her eyes glimmering with just a bit of gluttony. Gyoza. Naruto's lips quirked upwards. I know just the place, he said, steering her off from the main street to the right. He hoped she'll enjoy the food. Slipping into Madara's old hideout without a sound was one of the easiest things, Zetsu noted. His quest had been successful. It had taken longer than he would have liked, but the goddamn ruins were on the bottom of the ocean, so it wasn't so surprising. It was so convenient that the two had been careless, or perhaps Indra has deceived the full Senju. It didn't matter much to Zetsu. What mattered was that he had the scroll and it was teeming with power. The malicious power was mixed with the vitalizing energies of Mokuton and pure, unreined natural energy. He slipped onto the Gedo Mazo and grinned widely. Zetsu. The call was sharp and unexpected. Zetsu stopped to turn towards the voice. It was Obito, dressed and ready for battle, even the massive gunbai on his back. Only the mask was missing. The single eye fell onto the scroll. What is that? A spirit. The consciousness of the Jubi, in a sense. Its real consciousness. The 9 Biju adjust its chakra, he explained. And the Senju boy had found and sealed it for best is that some of the Kyuubi's chakra had been absorbed by it. This will wake Gedo Mazo enough for us to be even more successful in containing the Biju. Obito hummed, his posture showing satisfaction. Perfect. It seems, the Senju is helping us to our goal. Indeed he does. Zetsu agreed and then threw the scroll, which was glowing with a mix of black-red chakra into the statue. And soon, dear Obito, when the Biju are captured, you can go. I won't need you anymore. Indra will step up. The world will be his and not yours or Madara's. And when Indra opens the seal, Oka-sama may rise once more, the creature thought in satisfaction. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.